Hello and welcome to Sisters in Song. Can you take a minute to introduce yourself to our listeners, please, and tell us where you're coming
Hello,
from?
sisters in song. I am Maxwell Schaeffer. I'm an Iowa-based singer-songwriter who has resurrected his music after a long career in media and back out playing songs again like I did in my 20s and 30s. So, yep.
Very, very fun.
Exciting, yes.
I want to know, how did you originally catch the music bug?
Well, when I was a little kid, my brother was about 9 years older than me. And so among my first memories, my parents couldn't afford a babysitter. So when he was, 14 years old, hanging out with his friends, I had to come along. And there, there was this little band, my first real exposure to quote a band was the Beatles because he was a teenager when the Beatles came out. And so, here I am, just a snot-nosed little kid that he'd rather not have it hanging around. But, they listened. He bought all the records. He used to buy reel-to-reel
Wow.
copies of the Beatles albums because we
Oh,
had a little
cool.
reel-to-reel player.
Wow. That's cool.
Is that crazy?
Yeah.
So I grew up listening to that. And of course, in the 60s, he bought lots of records. And so I hadn't even turned 10 yet, but I was listening to all those records. And then he went off to join the Air Force, and my oldest brother was already out of the house. So I was just kind of home alone. And that's kind of where my formative years with one of the greatest eras in rock and roll really happened. So it's
Yeah.
crazy. Think about that. But you're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old and listening to albums, which was really cool. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And now they're making a comeback, which is also cool.
That is.
Yes, I got a record player right around the corner there. I'm trying to
Yeah.
I sadly, like every guy probably in his college years, broke up with a girlfriend and she got to keep his records for some
Oh.
reason. And so I like completely lost my entire library somewhere along the way. So I have to rebuild it.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Used record stores and those record day and all
Yes.
that stuff.
Oh my
Oh,
Great,
yeah.
great places to find them.
How did you get started playing music?
Well, my that same brother, he went off to basic training in San Antonio, Texas, and he and his buddies had a leave evening, so they crossed the border to Mexico, and he bought a little Mexican classical guitar, and then he brought it home with him after he got his first leave to come home, and then he left it. So I was, maybe 11 years old, and there was this guitar sitting around. And so I just picked it up and plucked on it and tried to figure out what to do with it. But it really wasn't until I heard the song Horse with No Name on the radio. So this would have been 71, I believe. So I'm 11, 12 years old, 11 years old. And I love that album, right? The whole America, that first America album. And my mom bought me the sheet music for the song Horse with No Name, and it was the easy chords sheet music, right? So
As you do, right?
some of the easiest chords to play ever, on a guitar, the simple ones. And so I figured out how to play chords and I started to learn what chord diagrams looked like. And so probably, for a couple of years, I would just buy these chord books and stuff and try to learn how to play. And I wasn't great, but I tried. But it really wasn't until I was about 13 that I thought I'm going to try to write a song. So that's kind of how it works.
Do you play other instruments now too?
I can play keyboard. I can write on keyboard and record on keyboard, but I'm not confident in a performance setting. My safety is my guitar. So, uh, and I can play bass if somebody asked me to sit in. I could probably hack through it in a jam session, but guitar is the main thing. So, yeah.
So after retirement from your media career, because we know you've done a lot of worn a lot of hats in your career. What kind of things are you hoping to do now with music?
Well, it's funny when I spent 42 years in radio, when I was in my teens and then through about 23, 24 years old, I was gigging as much as I could, mostly covering, 60s and 70s acoustic rock stuff and pop songs and then sneaking in my own stuff. But
Yeah, of course.
but then I got into radio, and then I found myself working morning radio. And so, you get up at 3 in the morning and you're not, it just doesn't lend itself to going and playing in bars or coffee houses
Yeah.
or pubs or being in a band or whatever. And so, even though I never stopped playing and I never stopped writing, and I did have some experiences where I had maybe an option to go into that again, I stuck in the media lane. So when I retired, I'm like, oh, I can do this again. And there's a lot of old guys like me out there that are still jamming and writing and playing. And it seems even more popular now than it was when I was, in my teens and 20s, the coffee house scene. I remember I played a couple gigs here in Des Moines because somebody asked me to cover some gigs or something. So I went ahead and played a gig or two, and I was like 35, maybe even 40. And they're like, who's the old guy up there? Because back then there were no old guys doing it, right? And I was like only 40. So now it's really not unusual to have 50, 60, 70-year-old guys playing their music and especially in these Americana bands and things like that. So it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Do you play on your own or do you play with a band now?
Right now, I'm just playing on my own. I do have friends that join me. I'm playing tomorrow night over in Dallas Center, Iowa, at a place called Board and Batten, which share it with your songwriter friends. It is like this great little listening room. They have a basement speakeasy. It's sort of like if you have the Beatles history, the Cavern Club of Dallas Center, Iowa. It's just this perfect, relaxed place where singer-songwriters can go in and people will listen,
Yeah.
And it has table service, which makes it even cooler. But I'll invite people to come out and join me on some songs, and I have friends that I play with, and I played in their shows or opened for them. So I'll usually try to invite a few people to come along and join me on a few things. So, yeah.
Well, you're a little far from us, but one of these days we're going to see you.
That's right.
I still come up there to work sometimes, so we'll come check it out.
If you need somebody to open for you,
Yeah.
give me a call. I'll drive over.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about your songwriting. Most of our listeners either are already songwriters or want to be songwriters. And so how do you see a song from start to finish? Do you come up with like lyrics first or melody, or how does that come to be for you?
Yeah, for me, it's sitting down and noodling and playing chord progressions or a little hook or something like that. And generally then that will inspire some lyrics. And I just hack through, I start making stuff up and then something sticks and I write it down. And then I get, or if I have an idea for a song, then I'll sit down and really try to find find out what I want to do with it on the guitar. I might have a line or a hook or an idea for a song. And so, and that really kind of started when I was 13 years old, because I had, my mom used to have a lot of Neil Diamond records. Like she had Frank Sinatra and Neil Diamond and, this sort of interesting little Neil Diamond's sort of hip, back in the 60s and 70s. So she wanted to be hip, a hip mom, so that was as hip as she got, right? Not the Rolling Stones, but so I just loved him, right? I just as a kid and listening to it, and she bought me a ticket to his concert back in my hometown of Pennsylvania when I was 13, and I only lived 5 blocks away from the arena where he was playing. So I just walked. I'm 13 years old, walked to the concert. And I remember sitting there and his fans were so crazy, freaking out for him. And I'd never seen anything like that before. And so I thought to myself, you know, because I was dabbling with poetry and seeing if I could figure out chords and things like that. And I thought, I want to write a song that Neil Diamond, it would be the last song he would sing to
I
his
love
face. Okay.
it.
And so the idea came into my mind of you know how can he repay back his fans, what he owes them. And so that idea, you know, sat with me. And then when I was 16, I went again to see him. I never did anything with it. And then right after that, I was getting a little better at songwriting, and I thought, I'm going to go ahead and try to flesh out the song. And I actually wrote almost all of it. And then I had forgotten about it until a couple of years ago,
Oh,
as I was
wow.
going through some of my old files of lyrics and stuff that I wrote down from when I was a kid, all through my life, and I found this, and I went, "Oh, that's the Neil Diamond song," and it all came back to me, so I kind of finished it, and so
Hey.
you know, but it's those kinds of things that when I write, I'm not a I don't have a whiskey voice. I'm more of a baritone tenor. You know, I love balladeers. Dan Fogelberg is my number one most favorite singer-songwriter ever, and I worship the guy, listen to his music every day. I think he captures how I like to write. I'm no Dan Fogelberg because he was a master musician and poet, but so my voice falls into different categories. But so I like to write for different categories. So I've been challenged to write some things. There's a blues bar in town that does a jam night, and so I have some friends that sing the blues, and they're like, "You should come over." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not really a blues player, but how about if I just write a blues song that's like a jam?" So I got, you know, so when I get ideas like that, that's what I try to do. And I've written commercial jingles. In fact, I'm secretly working on one for the Iowa State Fair, and they kind of know it, but I don't know. We'll see how it comes out. But but if somebody challenged me, or I hear a really great voice, or I listen to an artist for a lot, then I try to kind of write, imagining them singing it. So that's how I approach it. You know.
I love that
Me
idea.
too.
Yeah.
Me too.
We have several bands and things that we worship too and
Yep.
follow all over the country. Avett Brothers is our favorite.
Yes.
Oh,
And-
see, oh my gosh, they're
And they're
very inspiring, and I've seen them live here in Des
Yeah.
Moines.
Yeah.
And they're they're so unique, and they just have such a fingerprint, you know. And so I'll go see a show like that. I'll go see the Avett Brothers. For me, it was Little Feat back in the day.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, right? So they're sort of they weren't the Avett Brothers, but they weren't commercial. They kind of jammed in their recording sessions, and you can tell, but they just really had some really interesting songwriting. And so when I go see bands like that, even to this day, I come home and I'm like, I'm gonna write a song for them. You know, that's how
I love that
nobody
so
will.
much.
They'll probably never hear it, but so what? I'm gonna do it anyway.
But you know you did it.
But-
Yeah, that's right.
What do you do when you get like a creative block, a writer's block? How do you get out of it?
I actually I learned this from a singer-songwriter, Nashville singer-songwriter. This was years and years ago. I was at a sort of a seminar, and they were talking about songwriting, and somebody asked them that question. And so they said what they do is they task themselves that they're just going to, when they're in a block, they're just going to come up with whatever, and they're just going to force their way through it. And so I've had periods where I just don't write because I'm so busy, or now I'm writing again like crazy because I have a little bit more time to think about it and be creative. But for example, I decided one time that when I had a writer's block, okay, you know, I'm going to take the chords C, A minor, F, and G, and I'm going to write 4 songs using those chord shapes, and I'll just move the capo up 1 fret every time. So they sound a little different. And I ended up writing 4 completely different songs, and then that just opened it up again for me. It's like you almost have to force yourself because you get in your own way when you think, I can't think of anything. So in
Yeah.
other words, you just start singing notes or making up a melody line with some chords, and the next thing you know, oh, something's going to fall in there, but you got to force yourself to get through it, I think.
Yeah. How do you know if a song is finished?
Well, that's a great question. Having worked in music radio for 42 years, uh, when you hear popular music, and I worked country and top 40 radio and sort of rock radio. When you hear the same songs over and over and over again, you suddenly, as a songwriter, you completely understand formula,
Mhm.
and so, and then you learn how to kind of bounce out of that formula to make your song maybe unique. And maybe you change the key, or you throw in a chord that's a surprise twist, or you throw in diminished chords or seven chords. You do that kind of stuff. You learn how to play open chords or whatever. And so, to me, I always think in that formula beginning to end. And so if I get into a song and I've got two verses and a pretty good hooky chorus, I'm gonna write that bridge, or I'm gonna finish with another verse and a chorus. But I also then sometimes say I'm gonna get rid of the formula, and I'm just gonna come up with something completely unusual. But I always force myself, once I get started, to finish it. So my wife will tell me I don't do that, like when I paint or try to fix something around the house. But when I write a song, I'm like, force myself to finish it. And then I'll lay it down, and it may not be right, and I'll come back to it and make changes, but I just have to get it done first. So
Yeah, you have such a unique perspective, having been in the radio business, and hearing that formulaic part of music. So
Yes.
that's fascinating
well,
to
it does
me.
worry me that when I write something, it's like, was that already a song?
Yes. Yeah.
But then, like with Dan Fogelberg, I totally will steal a little snippet of his lyrics and throw them as a tribute to him. Or,
Mhm.
I came up with this song because there are a lot of people, and you guys can relate to this. People in bands that get like, so what kind of music do you play? And well, you're like, well, it's Americana, it's all country. I mean, think I have that in my bio. It's all these things, right? And one day I said to somebody, I play Solicana. And they went, what? I said, I'm just tired of explaining it all, so I just call it Solicana. And so I thought, I want to write a song about that, about a band that somebody wants to peg them as something, and they're like, we don't care. We just call it Solicana. So, but I stole Bad Company, a lick from Bad Company. I stole a Led Zeppelin lick. There's definitely a lot of Southern rock chord progressions in it, but I don't care. That's what's fun about writing. I don't expect to be big and famous with it. I just want to do it, right?
Yeah, yes, that's how we feel too.
Yep.
Just we're learning guitar and
Yep.
piano and just having fun with it. That's the point
what
of
you
music,
should do.
right?
Right. And the funny part is I've seen people who don't know any more than, the basic box chords, maybe 6 or 7 chords, and they write all around that, and they'll capo it up or whatever. And they've got a great lane, and they have a great sound, and they're very comfortable in that, and they put together some really amazing stuff, And sometimes I'm hard on myself because I want to make it too complicated, and I forget the simpler the song, the better, And that's where Neil Diamond, all his stuff was very simple, with a couple little musical flourishes that are signatures, and easy stuff. And sometimes the simplest songs have the biggest impact. So,
Yep.
That's totally
Yep.
true.
Yes,
That's totally
I
true.
tend to do that with lyrics, so I totally get.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
Right. You want to
Elaborate
be
essay.
the poet. You want to be this like amazing poet.
Yes.
Oh, trust me, I got a couple of those. And if the audience is into it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like, this may blow your mind. You may not have any idea what I'm singing about here, but I did it. I got this little poem to fit, So you're right. But then I'll write some stupid little song, and I'll play that for a bunch of people. I think it's stupid because it's so easy, and they're like, I love that. Will you play it again? So what do you do?
Really funny.
Yeah. It appeals to the masses.
That's right.
sometimes.
Right.
That's right. How do you feel like your music has evolved since you first started?
That's a really good question. I don't because I didn't because I've been writing for decades and I've forgotten more songs than I can remember. Things I didn't sit down and write down or record or there's no worse feeling than sitting and you sit for 2 hours and you come up with something really good and then you got to run and then you come back the next day and you're like, wait a minute, how did that go?
Yeah.
And that's like so stupid because I can just turn on my phone and record it. But I would say from an evolution standpoint, I've probably become a better player, and it's opened up the neck for me so that I can try some cooler, different things. And then when I bring in other players with me, they play around all that, which makes it really cool. So, but I think as a songwriter, my voice is still the same. It's all the same themes. On occasion, I will throw in some heavy poetry and let people talk about what they think the song's about, which is kind of fun. But I just think I've probably gotten better. And what's other thing that's interesting is as I've gotten older, my range has gotten higher, which is really strange because I was mostly a bass baritone. And I can sing a lot of songs in the low thing, but now I'm pushing myself to hit some of those Dan Fogelberg notes, if I can. So.
Well, that's fantastic.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but
I think it's good.
I think it's good.
Let's talk a little bit about performing because I know you've done a lot of performance, not just singer-songwriter type of stuff, but also on the stage. How do you get ready for a performance? Do you have a pump-up song? Do you have a ritual that you do?
I think it's the process of setting up your gig, and testing the sound and just kind of amping it up and then not allowing that anxious energy to mess up your first three songs, because you're like, but that for me, doing stage work or being for example, playing a role in a musical is so completely different. It's so much, it's so easier to hide in the character, So when I was young, really young, doing this, and I played in a lot of places, and very seldom did they want you to do original music. There were a couple, the campus coffee houses, you could do that back in the late 70s. But when you went and sat in a bar or whatever, you just play stuff people will sing along to. But what happened is the cacophony of people partying and having fun. And then you sit back and you go, I'm just sort of this background noise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I let that affect me. I was sensitive and I wanted to be an artist, and even though I thought my covers were unique and interesting and I've got used to get good feedback because I didn't want to like sound like the record because I just had an acoustic guitar. People you begin to feel like nobody appreciates you. It's like you're just noise. And back then you make your $25 and you have your bar tab and you're happy as a lark. But that kind of grated on me. I wanted people to listen to me and I wanted to be important. And that was just my dumb youthful ego and stubbornness or whatever. So now later in life, I don't care about any of that, So I just want to find places where I can play. And I've got some things coming up this summer where I know they expect me, patios, things, and I know they expect me to do some covers, but I'm going to work in my stuff and tell the stories because the one thing that I used to do, and now it's really popular, is tell the story of how you wrote the song.
Yeah.
What inspired you. And that just draws people in because if they're not familiar with the music, they know the story behind it, and that keeps them there. And I think that's the secret. But it's you're bearing everything.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't care. I can tell somebody I wrote this song when I was 19 and I was stupid, and I really wanted to, get with this girl, blah blah blah. And it's funny as an old guy to tell that story, and then people hear me sing it. To me, I'm like, this song was really popular in college, and because some girl was chasing me because I wanted this song. It's just dumb stuff. But now when I'm older, it's like I can reflect and tell those stories, and I don't know. People seem to like that. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like that's what draws me to going to live music is hearing the stories.
Yeah.
That's a huge draw.
Mhm.
And you're right, it's a lot more popular now than it ever has been before.
Yeah.
So keep it up, Max.
Yes. I
well,
like that
you
you're
guys
working
too.
across
I mean, you got to tell the stories. People want to know where'd that song come from. You know.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Should we do our rapid fire?
Yes, we
Okay.
should.
We have some rapid fire questions we're going to ask you. So just answer as you off the top of your head. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
First one, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Vinyl, cassette, CD, or streaming?
I would say, cassette.
Oh, do you have cassettes now?
I still do. I found a cassette player.
Oh, I love it. And that's when my car didn't have a cassette player anymore, I will say.
I know.
Okay. First album you ever bought?
My first album I ever bought was the Monkees. The Monkees theme, the first album with my own money. I was 7, 8 years old.
Great.
Do you have a go-to karaoke song?
I like to sing. I have an acoustic version of this, The Impossible Dream from Man of La Mancha. So that'd probably be my.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you prefer to write songs in the night or the morning or the afternoon?
I'm any time of day. So I sometimes I will actually wake up with something I was in my semi-consciousness was thinking about and like run downstairs. And sometimes if I can't sleep, I'll just pick up the guitar. And the next thing I know, it's 2 a.m, which I couldn't do for 40 years. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. Do you write lyrics on paper, phone notes, or voice memos?
They're all over the place. I'm trying to be better about putting it on my notes app, as opposed to writing it on a piece of paper because sometimes I can't read my writing as I'm scribbling.
I understand.
And paper gets lost
I
too.
totally
Yes.
understand.
Yes.
Okay. Dogs, cats, fish, birds, or reptile?
Yeah, I'd say dogs. Yeah.
Describe your sound in 3 words. You kind of already did this, but we'll make you do it again.
Balladeer. Balladeer probably is my thing. Yeah.
Yes.
would be it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. What advice would you give to new musicians or songwriters?
Stop worrying about being famous and worry about being authentic. And the rest is all luck. The rest is all luck and timing. And if you don't have that kind of luck or it doesn't land for you, you still have songs and skill and the ability to perform. And I've got 40 years of songs, but I'm not a famous songwriter. So.
But now it's time to put them out there, and we love that.
Okay, now it's time for your shameless plug. Tell our listeners where we can find your music, find if you have a website or.
I have, a dozen songs or so, I think, on Spotify. They're a mix of different genres and feels. And it's Maxwell Schaeffer. And then I'm just on Facebook as a public page, Maxwell Schaeffer, and that's kind of where I make my connections. I haven't done the website or anything like that yet. I would like to, I think, my goal here in this new year is I have about 12 songs I'd like to record. So in some way, shape, or form, I'll probably end up by the end of the year having that. And maybe also I've written some Christmas songs. I did one last Christmas that seemed to be pretty popular. It's not recorded yet, but I played it in a lot of places. So I may put out a little Christmas EP that has mostly originals on it. So, yeah.
Oh, that is a fantastic. Thank you so much. It's so great to see you. It's been way too long, and
it's been great chatting with you.
Yeah,
I love it.
Well,
I've learned.
get yourselves a house concert or something, and I'll come out and open for you. Okay.
Love it.
All right.
I love it. Yeah.